Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and executive chairman of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast, and in turn, continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
You can actually see the dough being prepared, the donut being made on the line, going through the glazed waterfall, and you can even have one straight off the line to enjoy, and they just melt in your mouth.
Krispy Kreme has built a global brand on the strength of their incredible product, those original glazed donuts we all know and love. And the key to unlocking the full potential of the brand is opening up new channels to get those donuts to consumers.
When people are asked why they may not purchase a Krispy Kreme, they normally say, where do I get these amazing fresh donuts from? It's convenience and access has been the barrier to Krispy Kreme's growth over the years.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. Our guest today is Josh Charlesworth, President and CEO of Krispy Kreme, which trades under the symbol DNUT. Josh has served as President and CEO since January of 2024, and he joined the company as CFO in May of 2017. He was also appointed COO in May of 2019 and Global President in 22. Prior to joining Krispy Kreme, he held various leadership positions at Mars, most recently as Global CFO of Mars Chocolate from January 2015 to 2017. Josh holds a degree in economics from the London School of Economics and is a member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. Let's enter the arena with Josh Charlesworth.
Thank you very much for the intro. I've forgotten I was an accountant once upon a time.
Yeah, well, you still are, You can never shake that, but that's not a bad thing. Listen, you got to be all over the numbers, and you are, and we'll get into that in a minute. But how did the Krispy Kreme opportunity come to you back in 2017, and what about the brand compelled you to jump at the opportunity?
Well, as you mentioned in my intro, I worked for Mars for 20 years.
Yeah.
One incredible company with incredible brands all over the world. And I was able to live all over the world and see how amazing brands can come to life, from M&M's to Pedigree to Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. It was an incredible experience. And I saw in Krispy Kreme a brand that rivaled, and I would say in many ways beats a lot of those brands, but not necessarily a company that did that. And I saw it as an opportunity to take everything I had learned to this amazing brand and work with the team here to build a company that really could live up to a brand that is now available in more than 15,000 locations in more than 40 countries around the world. So such an opportunity it was to take what I'd learned in one amazing company and apply it to another.
Yeah. And for those people who might be maybe living under a rock, tell us about the history of the brand, which is nearly 100 years old. Where did it start? How did it expand and evolve into what it is today?
Yeah, no, it's an incredible American iconic story. You go back, literally 89 years ago to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the great original glazed donut, our irresistible donut that we all know, and a recipe that was developed here in the US, originally sold just locally in local supermarkets, grocery stores, and then Vernon Rudolph, the founder, cut a hole in the wall and started selling hot donuts. And wow, has that become iconic, particularly the hot, fresh donut that you can get from one of our Hot Light theaters today, not just in the US, but would you believe it now, of the 2 billion donuts we make a year around the world, now half of them are bought in international markets, which is incredible to think how it could come from North Carolina to be sort of really worldwide.
Yeah, and just to drill down on that, Josh, the company today, maybe just a snapshot of kind of the channels, the scale, company-owned versus franchise. We'll get into where you want to go, but as it exists today, give our listeners a sense of what the company is today.
Yeah, it's system-wide sales, about $2 billion a year. Our actual revenues are around about $1.5 billion. And about 75% of the system at the end of last year was company owned. But actually, that's already reduced. And actually, we've been franchising, and it's now about 40% franchised. We operate in every continent, but it's clear wherever you go that we're about the donuts. And actually, it's about 90% of our sales are the donuts.
Wow.
Yes, you can enjoy a coffee or a beverage, maybe in some parts of the world, a milkshake, but we're the donut people, we're the fresh donut people. And actually half of our sales, even though there's so much donut innovation and so many donuts that we invent and sell around the world, the iconic original glazed that Vernon Rudolph launched all those years ago.
That's the one that just is the foundation of everything, right?
Yeah, that's the one that if you go to one of our Hot Light theaters, which we have more than 400 of those around the world, you can actually see the dough being prepared, the donut being made on the line, going through the glazed waterfall, and you can even have one straight off the line to enjoy, and they just melt in your mouth.
Showbiz.
It's incredible. It is the showbiz of the brand.
It is. Hey, look, I'm drooling. So the company over the last 90 years or so, fits and starts of expansion, but certainly in the last 20 years, had a mission to expand and grow, et cetera. I know that the company hit an inflection point, particularly at the end of last year, summer of 2025, where the business model had to be changed, some changes had to be made. Talk about what shape the business was in prior to making that pivot to the turnaround plan, and kind of why did you have to get back to some of the basics that you're already succeeding at this point as we sit here in May of 2026?
What's important to understand with Krispy Kreme is that when people are asked why they may not purchase a Krispy Kreme, they normally say, where do I get these amazing fresh donuts from? It's convenience and access has been the barrier to Krispy Kreme's growth over the years. And you talked about the last 20 years or so. The company's been growing at times double-digit pace by meeting that need, by just getting the donuts in front of more people, not just through the Hot Light theater that we just discussed, but by taking the donuts from those donut shops and making them available in other locations. They could be a fresh shop, a kiosk, or indeed, in recent years, we've been selling to grocery stores, convenience stores, and of course, digitally online. And all of these channels have now progressed and been growing, all at the same time whilst taking the brand around the world and partnering mostly with franchisees with a master franchise arrangement to open up into new countries from Japan, Australia, UK, Mexico, just to mention just a few. What we found in 2025, to your question, was that we faced a situation where the growth wasn't profitable enough. And our balance sheet wasn't strong enough. And so we decided to implement a business turnaround specifically to maintain the growth in the long run, but in the short term, ensure that all the revenue streams were profitable. And if you recall, we'd faced a lot of inflation in the couple of years before that. And so we really took a beat. We took a moment to really make sure that the business was profitable across all the revenue streams. And I mentioned that balance sheet, really strengthen the balance sheet by reducing debt and generating profitable returns and cash to do that. And hence also a decision to where we do have company-owned operations to shift to more the proven capital-light franchise model that has worked for us in many places around the world, but we want to really deploy more going forward. And we're very much in the heart of that turnaround now and seeing a lot of great progress.
And you used the term very quickly there, capital light. What does capital light mean to you in the context of Krispy Kreme and what you're doing?
Well, we talked about those Hot Light theaters. They are an incredible asset that we have, a wonderful customer experience, the pinnacle of the brand, and that's where we make our fresh donuts. But they do require capital investment. And so what we have, though, is we actually have quite a lot of donut making capacity. And so we've been focused on how do we take those same fresh donuts to other locations, which don't require as much capital investment. And then, of course, even better from as the CEO of Krispy Kreme itself, can we work with franchise partners who take their expertise and their capital and invest in the system and in the brand in that way. And hence those two combine for a more capital-light model that allows us to continue to meet that consumer demand for donuts, but without having to obviously raise as many funds as we would if we were trying to put all that investment behind it ourselves.
Yeah. And so in the U.S., and we'll get to international in a minute, the U.S. would be kind of franchising, refranchising, and a hub and spoke model where in those theaters you can take those donuts and you can get them in front of people at the right time and meet the customer where they are. That would be kind of the U.S. strategy, more or less.
Well, the hub and spoke model applies everywhere. And in fact, in many ways, it was invented internationally years ago by franchisees who had invested in these hot light theaters, but then wanted to expand themselves without putting more capital or significantly more capital in. And so they started to sell the donuts, the same fresh donuts locally at maybe a local subway station or a grocery store, or even opening up a smaller kiosk type shop somewhere else. And so that has built out as a way of growing the brand more capital efficiently and getting those donuts out more convenient to people as they move around. Specific to the US, we have deployed that model particularly well with our partner, the WKS Restaurant Group.
Yep.
They're also an operator of Wendy's, Denny's, to name just a couple. And we are actually in the Western states now franchised with them. In the rest of the country, pretty much sort of east of the Rockies, we have largely company-owned operations where we actually have excess capacity due to the 89 years of history. We're able to produce more donuts without significant investment. So we're focused in the US and those eastern states with expanding with the fresh delivery opportunity, at least for now. I think over time, there is opportunities to start investing in those smaller shop locations outside of the theater as well. But the focus is on fresh delivery in the US for now. And then, continue to open up internationally with franchise partners. We just opened up in Brazil, Spain, France in the last couple of years, all with great partners, just to give you examples of where we're continuing to find that working with franchisees can be a great way forward.
Yeah, and would you consider those three maybe the top growth opportunities international, or is it just kind of across the board? There's so much white space that you can continue to kind of grow. And
it's interesting. As I mentioned, actually now more than half the system sales, or about half the system sales, but more than half the profit comes from international. So we're firmly established as a global company. We've got big markets in places like Mexico, UK, Australia, Korea, Japan, the Middle East. All these places are all significant business markets for us. However, in every case, you do the consumer research and you get the same answer. Oh, if only I had more access to the donuts.
Yeah.
And so we're working with the established partners. For example, we've been trying sub-franchising in some places. Some places we are working with them to expand the sort of more kiosk model. In some places we have the fresh delivery in grocery stores, convenience stores. And then in other markets like Brazil or Spain, which are newer, we're just getting going with the concept and obviously expanding into new cities. Sao Paulo opened last year. We just recently, on the anniversary of that, said we're expanding across that mega city as an example. So there are multiple opportunities internationally, but it's all about Krispy Kreme. It's all about the fresh donuts. It's all about the same secret recipe that comes from Winston-Salem, North Carolina every time.
Yep. Is there a country or market that I would be surprised has Krispy Kreme?
Oh, that's a good question. Where would I really be surprised? Because it's honestly, you could be
Don't tell me it's in Antarctica.
We're not in Antarctica, but I must say the one that surprised me was such a great opening was in Paris, France, because, who thought that they would embrace the American donut with so much enthusiasm. But then you look at somewhere like an Indonesia or a Philippines where you see how popular the brand is.
Amazing.
And recently people obviously have been asking me with the events in the Middle East there, how do we feel about it? And I said, well, the biggest thing I feel about is, all the many people who know the brand and want the brand across the Middle East. And of course, we want to support them in these really tough times, but sometimes that can be a moment of joy, and the brand plays a role even there. So it's astonishing how you see the brand come to life around the world.
It's a little thing, but a great thing. We talked about refranchising in the U.S., WKS. Internationally, I was reading about Japan, what happened in Japan, and I know that's just an example of what you can do in other markets around the world.
It's really interesting. Yeah, Japan, the business has been growing for, a fair few years now, must be 15 plus years, in a market where there's actually quite a lot of competition. There is a big local player there, but obviously our brand really differentiates. The team there, very stable team, led by the same leader for a number of years, has really established the brand as a high quality, differentiated, fun, gifting and sharing product that's relevant, that has all this American heritage, but really is relevant for the Japanese consumer. We took over the brand during the pandemic. The business was struggling. And what we found was that it wasn't necessarily the brand as such or the product. It was more the operating model. We just discussed this whole hub and spoke operating model. And at the top of it is the hot donuts and that theater. And with the team there, we brought back hot donuts and the hot light, hot now experience, opened up a new flagship in Ginza, and really started to build the brand's credentials and grow again and grow profitably across the country. And what we decided to do is 5 years later, it made a lot of sense to partner up with a local operator who could be part of the future expansion of the brand across the country. And that also fits into our overall focus internationally on working with franchise rather than doing it all ourselves. We just find that, those local operators, they know their market. As long as we hold them to the same brand standards, that the quality of the product lives up to the name every time, we can work with them to build the brand and build the business effectively, even better than doing it ourselves.
Yeah. Now, one tricky part of the turnaround, as I don't have to tell you, your job is to communicate this to investors and the media and all your stakeholders. When you're refranchising, revenue can either go sideways or down, but profitability and all of that goes up. Like a lot of good things are happening. Unfortunately, the headline number sometimes catches the attention, and there's a lot of public companies to choose from. People don't always understand it. Talk about, however you're comfortable doing so, how revenue is going to look. And we'll get into the good stuff in a second, but the top of the P&L, how's that going to look like over the next few years?
What's important to understand, I think, in a situation like the one you describe, is that people step back and understand which revenue counts. And in the end, it's the revenue involving the customer and what they're purchasing, because that's, everything else from there is a business model choice. And I mentioned earlier that our system-wide sales are approximately $2 billion. We expect that to increase this year between 2 and 4%. And I think that starting there with something as simple as that is the most important place to explain that. And bear in mind, I'm saying 2 to 4% growth, obviously in this dynamic customer consumer environment, so much going on. And on top of that, we have exited from some unprofitable sales in the first half of 2025, which means that we're just naturally going to be having a headwind on that in the early part of the year.
Of course.
And so for us to still be pointing to that kind of 2 to 4 number demonstrates the quality of the brand.
Yeah. And then as the turnaround was at the 3/4 of the way through last year, there are some really impressive results coming in terms of like adjusted EBITDA, free cash flow, CapEx, leverage. Maybe talk about the last 6 months and particularly the latest quarter that you reported on some of the highlights that really, this isn't just talk, like it's happening, and people can see it in the financials. Maybe talk about some of the highlights from the latest quarter.
Yeah, no, that's good to understand. I mean, one of them, and going back to me being an accountant, I am focused on that balance sheet a little more than I should be as the CEO of Krispy Kreme. So we really believe that a company with the growth potential that we have, with the strategy we have, should have a stronger balance sheet. And it's just a lot associated with history. But we've been paying down that debt and reducing that leverage. And the leverage has come down significantly over the last 2 or 3 quarters. I think it was down to 5.5 times leverage in the last quarter, which still sounds like a lot for a growth company
from
like
us. From a high of what, 6.7?
Actually, it was almost 7 point something. It was over 7. Yeah, which
that's nosebleed territory.
And so we really focused on that. So that was an important achievement. Now, one of the things that's enabled that is some refranchising activity in the Western states with WKS and Japan, the 2 that we've mentioned already. But also we've improved our margins considerably. Actually, more than 250 bips in both of the last quarters. And that has been not just through a shift in revenues to franchising, which has only really just begun. It's actually been improving the operating profitability of our company operations, particularly in the US. the usual things around waste and labor, but also we have shifted something significant in our model. We used to distribute the donuts from our donut shops to those grocery and convenience stores locally ourselves. And with the growth that we had, we found ourselves managing literally thousands of trucks, delivery trucks and drivers who are generally operating overnight. And the complexity of that for our operations in what is quite an inflationary environment in that category, we felt that it was best to work with third-party experts and outsource that to third parties. And we just completed that a few weeks ago, a big initiative for us over the last year, which, instead of being a headwind as we have seen those costs and all that operational complexity in the past, we think that's going to be a real tailwind for us as we work with those third-party experts and we focus on what we do best, making donuts even more creatively and exciting than we have before, as efficiently as we can, and in support of franchisees. And that's where we need to focus our efforts. So that was a big moment for us.
One of the hardest parts of the franchise model is increasing your reach without sacrificing on the quality or consistency of your product or the brand. I asked Josh how he plans to expand the Krispy Kreme brand globally while preserving their signature freshness and taste.
That's important to understand how we do that. I mean, we've talked a lot about the donut, and it starts there, always fresh, made with the highest quality ingredients. And we do still today, a little bit of Winston-Salem, North Carolina is in every one of those donuts around the world. The secret recipe is prepared there and distributed around the world, would you believe? And actually, all the donut equipment is actually built and made and serviced out of our sites in North Carolina.
Is it really? Wow.
Nearly all the donuts are invented here in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the Innovation Center. And so our true heartbeat are those donuts. And as a result, that's what we think about, the quality of both the finished product, but also everything that goes into them and how those donuts are transported around the world is top of mind for us every day, because we know that's what sets us apart, but that's also what we can never take for granted. I think the other thing I'll say is the people we have here. I mean, the passion and grit that they have, the way they work together to make sure that the expectations of whether it's a family or somebody celebrating their 25th anniversary, as I'm about to next week with my wife, is going into the donut shop for, that it meets those expectations, because the expectations are so high. People buy us 2 to 3 times a year. It's not like a lot of other sort of QSR type restaurants.
Yeah, it's like a special occasion.
It is. Most people, the majority are bought for sharing occasions. Many people buying them for gifts. In that context, the way your people show up and the way the donuts show up is so, so important. And so we focus so hard on that.
And then another distribution channel, which we talked about, are your retail partners like Target and Costco and Walmart. Talk a little bit about those partnerships and the growth potential of that over the next several years.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows the Krispy Kreme brand. I hope everybody listening does. Our brand of awareness is almost universal, even in countries where we haven't entered yet. But the penetration, the availability of the brand isn't always there. In the US, it's around about 15% of families have accessed Krispy Kreme in the last year. And so our opportunity with the fresh delivery partners has always been, how do you make it easier for people to access the donuts? If they don't want to travel to our donut shop, people do. Would you believe it? On average, 10 miles people will travel to our donut shop, which we really appreciate. But maybe they've got something else going on in their lives. And what we found is by offering the same fresh donuts, and I want to reinforce this, the same donuts locally delivered to maybe your local Walmart, your Kroger, your Publix. You're probably going there for something else, but it's Halloween, it's St. Patrick's Day, it's Mother's Day. Wow, you see our products on the stand there and you say, wow, are these the same donuts? Yes, they are. You know what? This can be really convenient for me and my family, or me and my friends, or me going to the barbecue. Or what kind of hero am I going to be showing up with these at the barbecue later? And so, we found that is a big opportunity. And we are now available in approximately 7,000 of those kind of locations in the US today. But there are literally tens and tens of thousands of these locations where it could make sense for us. We're so focused on making sure the conditions are right, high traffic locations, customers who really understand the importance of quality and visibility of the product, but it's tons of growth opportunity and profitable growth here in the US and of course around the world with those.
Yeah. And then, I think we've kind of covered almost everything, but the digital channel is something that I'd love to learn more about. It's obviously a no-brainer strategy and certainly one way where you can get in front of everybody. Talk about how that has evolved over time and what's your vision for the digital channel?
Yeah, I mean, Krispy Kreme, we kind of live in the digital world.
Yeah.
The brand has so much social media presence. Across all media, we get more than 100 billion media impressions a year, which rivals almost any other brand. And that's because we're seen as so relevant to the younger consumer. More than half our sales to under 35s. And so, being online and being present is so important. We've got, for a US shop network of about 400 retail shops, we've got 17 million loyalty members. Just give you an idea of how much interaction there is around the brand. This has led us, we actually only launched e-commerce ourselves during the pandemic. Actually, it was planned before the pandemic. We timed it well.
Yeah.
And now 23% of our retail sales are in the form of e-commerce, whether it's delivery, pickup, on our own web app platforms or with third-party aggregators, and is our fastest growing channel, even faster than the fresh delivery, which we've talked about before. So, for us, having top of mind awareness of the brand, making sure the innovation is really breakthrough, LTOs that really matter, whilst making sure people can get that original glaze, which travels pretty well when delivered carefully with our delivery partners, is a big part of not just us today, but our future.
Yeah. And you touched on this, understanding that the original glaze is the foundation. Talk about LTOs and collaborations and making sure not only people my age, who have known the brand forever, get what I want, but also maybe Gen Z and younger kids get involved. How do you approach that, and what kind of things do you do?
Well, what's amazing about the brand is about all those amazing stories you hear from families or from parents about when they were young, about when they went with their families to the donut shop. And normally what triggered it was the hot donut coming off the line. But we found with that digital presence, with that awareness of the brand, that you can, obviously in seasonal moments, bring something maybe to Valentine's or Halloween that really stands out from not just the competition, but something that you can bring and share with others and for a special occasion like that. But also we found we can tap into special events or cultural buzzworthy moments that, they could be a movie franchise, Masters of the Universe. Doughnut collection just came out this week, for example, or we had a Harry Potter collection that flew off the shelves last year. Or it could be something that's more of a cultural moment. We had an Artemis 2 donut where we worked with NASA. They loved the backstory of us being able to do an Artemis 2 donut, and we were going to just do it for the launch. We actually ended up doing it for the whole mission.
Like if NASA's returning your phone call, like you're doing something right.
It was kind of fun to be kept up with mission events by NASA, and super fun for our teams and our Krispy Kremers who got to go into mission control and got to interact with the NASA folks.
Incredible.
That Krispy Kreme can unlock those doors. I mean, sometimes it's more what you call more traditional partnerships, like we work with brands like Oreo or Hershey's, or we have great collaborations. So it's a real mix of things. I can't tell you the amount of ideas that people have here, of what you could do with a donut, put on a donut, put in a donut, or what it can become a part of in people's lives, because it's not just something to indulge and consume yourself, even though they do taste great, and I love them, and I hope you do. It's when you come to an event or you go to a family occasion, you're seen as a hero often. You're seen as somebody who's really lifting the room. And that gives us so much opportunity to reinforce those moments. And there aren't many of them, so we all want more of them. So Krispy Kreme, can play that role.
How about taking it just a totally different angle? And I'm sure you've been asked this a bunch. What's your take on GLP-1s and all that kind of stuff? I mean, your financial performance is improving and powering through regardless of all this stuff. And there's so much noise out there in the echo chamber. How do you guys think about that?
Well, remember that Krispy Kreme is a brand, a product for special occasions, usually shared, often given to others. Purchased just 2 or 3 times a year, normally in dozens. Would you believe our fastest growth recently has been in the double dozens, where we've been focused on providing value on that second dozen? In that context, I think it won't surprise you to learn that we're not seeing significant impact specifically from the GLP-1s. Now, we are focused on making sure that what's in our donuts really meets people's expectations, really high quality ingredients. But when you talk to people, what they're mostly focused on is how do they look? How do they taste? Where do they come from? Are these fresh? Are these high quality? And we've found that, including our customers who use GLP-1, we find that they are just as, if not more discerning on those things as anything else. And so what we're finding is that's our focus, make sure we live up to their expectations. That being said, whether you are conscious about those things or not, we have heard from our consumers that they want variety, they want choice. And so we don't just bring the LTOs, we bring seasonal ranges, spring, winter, summer, and the like. And we have different portion sizes. We have a minis range, literally think a mini original glazed. We have dots, we have mini crullers. So we have been providing different portion options for people, which I certainly think gives them more choice. But overall, we think we're well positioned with our differentiated fresh product, even in these changing consumer trend times.
The results prove that out. It's not just words. Josh, how about, I always think like any company can only be effective doing 2 or 3 big things every year. What are you focused on right now? What are you most excited about for the rest of calendar 26 and kind of into 27?
Well, I think that everything I've said about the brand and the consumer's point of view around it, we don't take it for granted. So actually the first thing we think about is what kind of experience do people have when they come in our shop? So we're very focused on operations excellence. Our Doughnut University, which is just a wonderful experience for our employees, is really focused on making sure that our customer experience meets that expectation every time. So I'd say operational expertise and excellence is top of mind. Then, how we bringing to life and exciting people around the donuts and the brand, all the innovation I just talked about is always up there. And then I think third of all, is on the business side, this turnaround that you mentioned before, making sure that the actions we've taken are following through the way we planned. As you said, in the first couple of quarters, it's been good to see that happen. But I don't take that for granted either. It takes discipline and focus to make sure that every revenue is profitable and sustainable for the long run so that we can eventually move from a turnaround phase more to a long-term profitable growth phase. That will come. But right now, we just got to make sure we deliver on the turnaround commitments that we've made.
Yeah, and listen, all the fun and good stuff and innovation and, investments can only come if the house is in order. And it's really powerful going from kind of defense to offense, and you're kind of moving in that direction, which is exciting. So, Josh, I think maybe the most important question of the day is, what is your favorite Krispy Kreme donut?
I feel like I have a new favorite every week as I get to try them here at our innovation center.
Will you offend like a whole group of people no matter what you pick here?
No, because I'm going to pick the obvious, because in the end, the original glaze, especially if you get to try it in one of our Hot Light theaters, is an amazing experience. It's also awesome if you just get a fresh one from a grocery store, because they're the same donut. They were made at a local Krispy Kreme, but it's the original glazed every time for me.
That was Josh Charlesworth, President and CEO of Krispy Kreme. He and his team are engineering a turnaround that's still in the early stages, focused on profitable U.S. expansion, capital-light international franchising, refranchising as appropriate, and certainly deleveraging and having a great balance sheet. The last 6 months of results show that things are clearly moving in the right direction, and with Josh and his team executing at such a high level, I'm confident that this iconic American brand will continue to see consistent domestic and international growth. I'm Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.